It is the last crossover Thursday of the 2024 season, and who could it be better against an AFC West opponent? Locked On Chargers, Locked On Raiders, here on your last crossover Thursday of the season.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Crossover Thursday. I am the Locked On Chargers host, David Droegemeier. I'm here with your boy Q of Locked On Raiders, and this is the last game of the season. Crazy that I'm saying that out loud. This 2024 season has absolutely flown by, but before we get into it, Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Q, like I said, it's unbelievable that this season just flew by. It just seems like the older you get, the faster the days fly by. But how's this 2024 season been for you?
Well, I mean, it's obviously it's a disappointment for the Raiders, right? I mean, four wins on the season, maybe five if they could pull it off on Sunday at Allegiant Stadium. It's been a disappointment from that standpoint. But I mean, look, we get to talk, Raiders and Chargers and any other NFL team across the Locked On Podcast Network, each and every day all year long. So I couldn't ask for anything else. And it's wild, David. I mean, we started this bad boy off, right, week 1, and now we're closing this bad boy off in week 18. And good for you. At least you'll have some post-game action or postseason action to talk about as well. So it should be a lot of fun. I'll be busy in the offseason too. That's for sure.
So. Amen to that. I think both teams are going to be busy in the offseason for very different reasons, and we'll see how things are going to unfold. But obviously, it's Crossover Thursday, so we're going to get into the away teams. That would be my team, the Chargers. The biggest storylines on offense and defense. Then we'll flip things over to the Raiders, get the biggest storylines of offense and defense for the Raiders, and then we will close things out with our keys to victory for each team, what each team needs to do to pick up a victory to end the season. So, biggest storyline for us, for the Chargers, is Alohi Gilman coming back from IR. The Chargers defense, specifically in their safety room, has been hit pretty heavily with injuries. Derwin James has been fantastic, and I think he really has returned to all-pro form this year. Kudos to Jesse Minter and Coach O'Leary and Steve Clinkscale, the secondary coach and safety coach, for really bringing the best out of Derwin. But behind him, they've been trying to find that right dance partner. They got a couple of veterans. They got Eddie Jackson. They got Tony Jefferson back there, which has helped bring on some of the new guys, the young guys. But having Alohi Gilman, who was the starter coming into the year, coming off of IR, and this is what Coach Harbaugh basically said, that Alohi Gilman told him he is ready to go. So that is very good news for the Chargers in a room that has been decimated by injuries. To get somebody back that knows the defense, that has excelled in the defense, is big, big news for the Chargers.
Well, with that being said, and we've kind of talked about this before, potentially what the game on Sunday is going to mean, and that's basically seeding based off what happens on Saturday with the Bengals game. Is there a chance that even though he's coming back from IR, if it doesn't affect the Chargers on Sunday, maybe they rest him for another week to get him ready for the postseason run?
Actually, I think quite the opposite. I think it's important that Alohi Gilman gets out there and plays, regardless if there is something up for grabs or not, because he's been off for over a month. He hasn't played since the Chargers played the Ravens in the middle of the season. So you got to knock that rust off, Q. I mean, you can be locked into the mental reps, you can be in the film room, but there is no substitute for being on that football field, involved in the game plan, going out there, repping it out. I think it's really important. And hey, he hasn't hit anybody in over a month either, and he hasn't been hit in over a month. So I think that's something that's important. Get your body ready, get it reacclimated to the very violent sport of football.
Would that be something that you would kind of consider the same thing for maybe even the rest of the team? Not even play the whole game, but just get out there and at least get some reps in and not have, a big delay or miss time off just so they could stay in the same kind of routine. Is that something that you think that Coach Harbaugh might do as well?
Well, Coach Harbaugh is being very kind of close to the vest on what he's going to do with that.
Right.
He's basically saying, hey, obviously 11 sounds a lot better than 10, and obviously we all know that to be true. But if there's nothing to go out there and achieve whatsoever, if you're locked into the 6 seed, then why are you going to go out there and put Justin Herbert and put him in harm's way? Why are you going to put Derwin James and your superstars, the guys that you need to be able to excel in the playoffs? I just think that, we'll see him probably for a few series, but if there's nothing to play for, I guarantee there is no way that the starters are going to play a full 4 quarters of football. I just can't see it happening. Now, on offense for the Chargers, biggest storyline is, can they keep the offense cooking? Greg Roman, after all of the flack we have given him all season long for the inconsistencies in the offense, it has kind of gone away the last couple of weeks. The Chargers offense has scored 6+ points in 8 straight quarters, 74 points over their last 2 games.
Nice.
And this is really important because you do not want the offense going back into those long droughts heading into the playoffs. You want to be hitting on all cylinders, and that also includes the running game. I mean, Greg Roman's been known as a running game savant, but we have not seen that very often this season. And obviously, J.K. Dobbins being in and out of the lineup, going to IR, coming back from IR, that's important, right? That's definitely going to have an impact on the running game. But the last couple of games, the Chargers over 100 yards rushing in 2, and that's after not going over 100 in their last 4 games. So it's very important. I want to see what the offense is going to look like because it might not be at full strength. Joshua Palmer missed practice today. Ladd McConkey missed practice with a toe injury today. So we'll see what that looks like. Obviously, it's something to monitor as the week goes on. But Chargers want to continue to fire on all cylinders on offense. And one of the big tools they've used with that, Q, is the play action. They've really been able to exploit defenses with the play action. And as I'm sure you also know, if you don't have any running game threat, then the play action just isn't as effective.
Facts. Yeah, that's big facts right there. And obviously, Jim Harbaugh, he butters his bread by way of the running game. And of course,
the
play action. Yeah, the play action is fantastic. As far as just kind of the offense, and I know it's clicking as of right now. Is this just part of the maturation process? Like, I kind of, and this is just from an outsider looking in, I feel like the Chargers may even be a little bit ahead of where they thought they were going to be this year. I don't know if exactly what Jim Harbaugh's schedule. I mean, he's always going to want to win and get to the playoffs, but I feel like that they still need to evolve and maybe put just a couple more weapons. Ladd McConkey's been fantastic, but just a couple more weapons around Justin Herbert. Is that something that you're kind of looking at? Like, no matter how this thing ends, that just providing more weapons for Herbert is going to be what they need to do?
Yeah, I think that you're definitely onto something there. And weapons in the form of offensive line, in the form of tight end, and I think a true number 1 wide receiver. I mean, Ladd McConkey is fantastic, and I think he's probably a borderline 1, but he just does most of his work out of the slot. So adding another guy that can be a dynamic presence on the outside to open things up for him, and even, having a guy in the middle to open things up, at tight end, I think those are a couple positions. But the Chargers offensive line on the outsides has been phenomenal.
Fantastic.
Joe Alt is a absolute maniac monster, just a behemoth. And then Rashawn Slater is having an all-pro year. I think he's probably been the best tackle in the AFC this year, just from a complete total package of being a run blocker and a pass blocker. He's been fantastic. So they've been great. The interior, not so much. I mean, they've had a revolving door of guys at the guard positions, and when you have that, and your center's been off and on. Bradley Bozeman's been good, been bad a lot. So it's just, I think that's an area they know that they need to improve on. So I see knowing Jim Harbaugh, a lot more money getting thrown into the interior of that offensive line, and probably drafting a tight end pretty high, I would say. Now the Chargers are going to have a lot of money in the offseason. I mean, and if they cut Joey Bosa, they'll have over $100 million in cap space. Even with Justin Herbert locked up to that big contract, they're going to have a lot of money to spend, and probably 9 or 10 draft picks, depending on how the comp pick formula kind of turns out. So they're going to have a lot of ammunition to really say, hey, Jim, what do you want? I can go get it.
Right. That's fantastic. I mean, that to have that kind of money, that kind of salary cap space, and to have that many draft picks and coming off a season where you went to the playoffs. I mean, that's just a recipe to continue to evolve. And I mean, look, you're the Chargers are in the AFC West, right? The Raiders are in the AFC West. We know who's also in the division, right? The Chiefs and the Broncos are getting better, right? The Broncos are fighting for the playoffs too. So that division is going to continue to get better. So the Chargers sound like they're on the fast track to going to where they need to be, which is why the Raiders need to get busy in the offseason and try to catch up because, man, that division ain't waiting for nobody. That's for sure.
Absolutely not. Speaking of the Raiders, we got to get into the Raiders and talk about the biggest storylines in offense and defense for the Vegas Raiders, and we're going to do that right after this. But first, I got to tell you guys about Game Time. If you want tickets to this game or any kind of tickets for sports, theater, or comedy shows, you should be getting your tickets with Game Time. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. If you're a Raider fan living locally or a Charger fan wanting to take a trip to Las Vegas to watch this game, you can still get tickets for this game for as low as $67 per ticket. And that is the actual price because Game Time has all-in pricing. Toggling the all-in pricing feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, we're back here on Crossover Thursday, joined by your boy Q, Locked On Chargers. I am your host of Locked On Chargers, David Droegemeier, and it's been a tumultuous season for the Las Vegas Raiders here. Obviously, when you finish things up, 4 wins, 5 wins, potentially if you're able to get this one on Sunday, then some things went wrong. And so going into this season with the outlook for the Raiders and going into this game, what would you say is the biggest storyline on offense?
Well, on offense, it's just continuing to see what quarterback Aiden O'Connell has, right? I mean, he's a guy that helped Antonio Pierce remove the interim tag following the 2023 season and get the full-time job because he helped win games down the stretch for AP. And, then he didn't get to start when the season started. It was Gardner Minshew. Then they went to O'Connell, and then he got injured. And then he came off of IR, and then all of a sudden he got hurt again. And so it's been important to play the last 3 weeks of the season for Aiden O'Connell because many people, including myself, anticipate the Raiders going out and trying to get a quarterback of some kind of quarterback in the draft, or maybe that they can't get one in the draft. Now they're sitting at the number 8 spot. Maybe they're going to have to go out and try to get a Sam Darnold if he becomes available, or other, another veteran that may be available. But for Aiden O'Connell and the offense, it's his opportunity to say, you don't need to go out and get a quarterback. I'm actually your guy. And so it's been, it's really consistency that you're looking for, right? I mean, that's how you know that your quarterback can play, is if he can consistently put something out there on film that looks really good. And so he's looked good, looked more comfortable the last 2 weeks. So we'll see how he finishes this thing off on Sunday. And with that being said, getting a little comfortable in the pocket means that the offensive line is blocking and doing a really good job. And all about that. And the Raiders offensive line has been pretty shaky all season, but they're starting to come together as well. They got a couple rookies on there starting. Jackson Powers-Johnson he's at the left guard spot because, their left guard that they had, Jordan Meredith, went down. So Jackson Powers-Johnson slid over from first he was the left guard. Then he slid to the center spot. Then he slid back to the left guard spot due to injury. And then they got DJ Glaze there at the right tackle. So those are 2 rookies that are starting along the offensive line. So that's a nice little base, young guys on that offensive line, but they got to continue to come together. So really, that's 2 of the biggest keys on offense for me, is just kind of looking at Aiden O'Connell, seeing how he continues to evolve, looking at that offensive line. And, you mentioned Ladd McConkey and what he's able to do there with the Chargers. Well, his former Georgia teammate, Brock Bowers, is pretty special, and he's having a pretty special season. So just kind of watching and seeing what he does each and every week, it's pretty amazing. So, yeah, definitely watch out for 89. If you want to point out somebody that the Chargers need to cover, it'll be 89. That's for sure.
There is definitely a strong feeling in me that we're going to be talking about stopping Brock Bowers when we get to our keys for success later on in this show, because wow, how dynamic has he been this year? Whenever you pass Mike Ditka And
Right.
any tight end stat, let alone the rookie receiving yards record, is absolutely spectacular. I mean, the dude is unreal. I mean, has to have been really fun to watch, and has to have been one of the bright spots for the Raiders all season, watching him perform and go out there and ball out.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing about it, David, that cracks me up is, and it makes it even, more amazing what he's doing, is he's done it with the carousel of quarterbacks. I mean, like I said, he started out with Gardner Minshew, then he went to Aiden O'Connell, then he went back to Minshew, then Desmond Ridder showed up for a quick second, and then back to Aiden O'Connell. It's like, I mean, I might as well go out there and throw a pass to him. You might as well go out there and throw a pass to him. It's like he's quarterback proof. It doesn't matter.
That's what I was going to say.
It's just like, who is this guy? What is this guy? They've been calling him Brocktimus Prime, which is kind of cool.
That's
right?
a great nickname.
It's a pretty cool name. So I'm like, well, you know what? There's not a whole lot to get excited and fired up about with this team. This season obviously is stunk, but it's like, you know what? Go see 89 go out there and perform. Humble dude, doesn't talk a lot, just wants to play football. He is fantastic. So, yeah, if there's one super bright spot on this Raiders team, it's number 89, Brocktimus Prime. That's for sure.
Absolutely no question about it, man. Like, that guy is a core piece to build around. The fact that he's been able to do what he's done with the quarterback situation, with all of the moving parts on offense, he said, I don't care. I'm just going to do me. I'm going to continue to excel. But let's go ahead and switch things over to the defensive side for the Raiders. And so, obviously, Brock Bowers is the superstar on offense. What would you say is the biggest storyline on defense for the Raiders for this game?
A lot of evaluation. I mean, and unfortunately for the Raiders, it's been about 2 months of evaluation season, right?
Yeah.
And, no Max Crosby, he's on IR, so his season's over. No Christian Wilkins, he's on IR, his season's over.
A lot of money right there.
Right. Ja'Cory Bennett, right? The stud cornerback. He was in his second year, having a fantastic year. He's on IR. He's done. Marcus Epps tore his ACL. He's on IR. He's done.
Tough.
So you can get the theme is that a lot of their starters on defense are all on IR. So it's a lot of guys that you don't necessarily know that are household names that are out there and they're performing and actually stepping up and playing really well. Isaiah Palamao in the back end at the safety. He was an undrafted guy out of USC a couple years ago and just now getting an opportunity to go out there and show what he can do. He was actually AFC Defensive Player of the Week a couple weeks ago, right, for Week 16, just because he was able to force a couple fumbles and the Raiders recovered him. And he's playing really well at the back end of that Raiders defense. K'Lavon Chaisson, the guy used to be a first-round pick of the Jaguars. They waived him, and the Raiders picked him up off waivers. He's already up to 5 sacks with the team. So it's just guys that don't – it's like guys that don't have the big name, Jonah Laulu. Like, who? Right. But he's I mean, it's like, but he's out there balling. And so it's just like all these guys, because of injury, have an opportunity to prove that, hey, I deserve a spot on this team. And even if they don't make this team, they're putting some really good film out there so they can get a job, right? And so that's what this is really all about. And like I said, I hate that it's been the last 8 weeks or so where it's been evaluation season for the Raiders, but that's what it is. And the fact that these guys haven't quit, they continue to fight, and they haven't, mailed it in and decided like, oh, this coach sucks, this team sucks, we're out of here, let's just plan our vacation. I got to give them a lot of credit for that. And I know a lot of fans aren't happy about the 2-game winning streak that they're on because it lowers their draft seeding, but
yeah, we talked all about that last year. Trust me, I know all about that.
Exactly. As you know, players don't give a rip about a draft pick, and coaches
not at all.
They want to win games, and they need to keep their jobs or at least have another job and opportunity with another team. So that's kind of what it is for the Raiders and their defense.
So you kind of talked about some of the things that the Chargers might need to do on offense and stuff. So I'm just curious, like, if you were, putting your GM hat on here for the Raiders, what would you be looking at trying to add to the Raiders defense? What do you think are the pieces they really need to kind of hone in on?
I think they still need a stud linebacker. Robert Spillane is fantastic. He really is. I don't know if they're going to re-sign him. I hope that they do. I think that he's been a really good player, but I could see them grabbing another linebacker, a true like sideline to sideline guy if they can find one. It seems like that's been a position that's been really hard for them to draft over the years. So that's going to be interesting. I wouldn't be mad if they went and got another corner. Jack Jones is good. Ja'Cory Bennett, like I mentioned, he's out, and you'll see a lot of DeCam Richardson, which is a 4th-round pick rookie who I think is playing well. It's like, throw it into the fire and see what he can do, sink or swim. And, he's had moments where he's been really good. But, he's still a work in progress. I think that in the offseason, if they were to grab like another big-time corner and if nothing else, just have some extra depth, I think that would be really good. And then they've got to solve the mystery of who's going to be the bookend across from Max. Right. I mean, that's what they really got to figure out. Tyree Wilson was drafted to be that guy. He's slowly developed. He's kind of going a lot slower than most people expected. K'Lavon Chaisson, I mentioned, he has 5 sacks with the team. Maybe he could be that guy. That Malcolm Kuntz, he was out. He's been out all season because of torn ACL. So maybe he can come back and be that guy. But then how good is he going to be coming back off a torn ACL? Like, there's a lot of questions. So I just think they just don't have the depth, right? So I really don't think that they can grab a guy on defense and it not be a need, right? I just think that they need to put more talent into the cupboard. So that's Tom Telesco's job, which is funny. I mean, obviously you saw what Tom Telesco was able to do as the GM of the Chargers for many years. So he did a really good first draft with the Raiders. So we'll see if he's able to do the same thing in 2025.
Yep, lots of work to be done, obviously. So we'll see what the approach is going to be for Tom. But we got to get into this game and got to talk about the keys to victory for each team, what each team needs to do to be able to pick up a victory to end the 2024 season. We're going to get into that right after this. But first, I got to tell you guys about FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team needs. Points each team will score. For Week 18, the Chargers are currently 4.5-point favorites over the Raiders in Las Vegas. This could be a line that moves throughout the week, depending on what happens before the game and whether or not the Chargers will play the starters the whole game. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for anytime touchdown scorers, how many points each team will score in each half, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, guys, back here on Crossover Thursday. Thank you so much for starting your new year here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm David Droegemeier of the Locked On Chargers podcast. That is your boy Q of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Always a great time. Before we get into these keys to victory for each team, got to remind you that Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. So I am the Chargers are the away team, so I'll go ahead and kick things off here with the keys to victory. So for me, the keys to victory are pretty simple. Number one, prepare like it matters, because you just don't know what's going to happen. So that's number one. Number two, win the turnover battle. This is something that's been very important to any game that's been played in the National Football League. You got to win the turnover battle. If you don't, you're probably going to lose. And for me, the last one is player specific. I usually don't do this on crossovers, but when the player is as dynamic as Brock Bowers, then it's do everything you can to stop Brock Bowers. Nobody's been able to, so we got to try to limit his effectiveness. Now, the Chargers won't know really if they have anything to play for in this game until Saturday night's game with the Bengals and the Steelers conclude. If the Bengals win, then the Chargers have everything to play for. What is that? The 5th seed in the playoffs, which would give them a date with the Houston Texans in Houston, which I think if you look at the AFC playoff picture objectively, they're a team that's kind of sputtering towards the finish. And so that's a team that the Chargers, I think, would very much like to play in the first round of the playoffs, because I feel like they would feel like they can get that victory. So if that happens, then yes, I expect the Chargers to go out there full force and go out there and try to get that win. If they don't, then I would expect to see some starters get rested, because there's just nothing that the game means to the Chargers at that point. So I feel like that's probably going to be the game plan. But you got to prepare like the game matters. You can't expect the Bengals to lose or win. You got to worry about the Raiders. You can't overlook them, because like I said, I'm sure the Raiders would love nothing more than to spoil the Chargers' chances at getting that 5th seed if it's up for grabs, or just finishing their season strong with a 3-game winning streak. So second thing, win the turnover battle. The Chargers turnover, their turnover margin is fantastic. It's plus 11. So they've done a very, very good job of limiting the turnovers and getting those turnovers all season long. The Raiders, on the other hand, are minus 15. So they just have had a really hard time keeping hold of the football. Most of that's been quarterback interceptions, which with Aiden O'Connell out there, he's a little bit more protective of the football, a little bit more careful. He doesn't really cough it up as much as, let's say, a Gardner Minshew had throughout the season. So that's definitely something that's going to be important to this game. And then Brock Bowers, like I said, he's an absolute maniac. So you got to try to do your best to try to limit his effectiveness because he has the type of talent to take over a football game. But for the Raiders, what would you say is the keys to victory to go out and finish the 2024 season out with a bang?
Yeah, well, that's what the Raiders are going to want to do. Antonio Pierce in particular, because nobody knows what's going to happen come Monday, right? Nobody knows if Mark Davis and Tom Brady and company are going to decide, yeah, he's the right guy to be the head coach, or no, we've got to do better. We've got to improve it. We've got to bring in another guy. So all he cares about is wins. And the Raiders have gotten 2 wins in a row. They've gotten that because they haven't turned the ball over, right? All season long, they've been terrible, like you mentioned, at turning the ball over. They were the team that didn't create turnovers, and they were the team that turned it over all the time. They were the worst in the league. And so the last couple of weeks, they've been able to cause some turnovers and recover some fumbles and get a couple interceptions. So that's been a positive. If they're going to finish this off with a 3-game winning streak, they have to create a couple turnovers, right? And they cannot turn the ball over. When they turn over the ball, they lose. It's so funny. Jacoby Myers told me after week 16 game, he said, hey, it's no coincidence. We don't turn the ball over, we win games, right? It's when we turn the ball over, we lose. And you said it, right? I mean, that's something that goes with every team in the league. You lose the turnover battle, most likely you're going to lose the game. So that's something that's definitely got to be like key number 1 is to make sure that happens. Key number 2, like I said, it's been evaluation season. These guys that are being evaluated, these guys that are kind of having their last audition, they need to continue to play strong, right? And I'm talking about Aiden O'Connell as the quarterback, right? Is he or isn't he going to be the guy moving forward? Or is he going to be a guy that maybe is a bridge quarterback? I mean, he's got to prove who he can be. He's got to go out there and play mistake-free football, and he looked really good last week against the Saints, even though that's a beat-up Saints team. It's not full strength or anything. They didn't have their starting quarterback, but he looked pretty good. So can he add to that? Can he continue to stack and do that? And it's funny, Amir Abdullah, the running back, he's been in the league 10 years. He had his first 100-yard game.
That's crazy. 10 years.
41 games. He's been in the league that long and never had a 100-yard game, and he had it last week. So I think they're going to try to continue to run the rock with Amir Abdullah and see what he can do. And they're all banged up in their running back room anyway. So I think that that'll be something that you'll try to see, or you'll see them try to have a heavy emphasis on, is the run game. And, again, defensively, just these guys that, like I said, that you might not have heard of, the Isaiah Palomals, the Kalavon Chasons, the Jonah Laulus, guys like that. They just got to go out there and put their best foot forward. DeCam Richardson, right? Just go out there and finish off strong. Just give that maximum effort that they've been giving. I don't think that's going to be a question. And, leave it all on the grass. I mean, that's all you can do, right? I mean, at the end of the game, when the clock says 0-0-0, the season's done. Right. And so you might not be back. So you might as well leave everything that you got out there on the grass. And if you're a coaching staff, you better, throw out the kitchen sink at the Chargers, because you might not be back in the booth or on the sideline in 2025. So, I mean, I think this is going to be a busy offseason for the Raiders. I actually know it's going to be a busy offseason. So these guys have one more crack at it to have some fun at home in front of their home fans. So go out there and do the best that they can. And that's all they can really do, is just leave it on the grass.
Regardless if this game has any meaning for the Chargers or the Raiders, it doesn't have to, because these two teams don't like each other, and they never have. It's going to be a physical battle no matter what. I can't wait to watch it, but that's going to wrap things up for this Crossover Thursday episode. Thank you so much for joining along with us. Make sure and check out your boy Q at the Locked On Raiders podcast. He does fantastic work covering the Raiders all year long. And of course, stay locked into that Friday episode. I'm sure he's going to give you more of his keys for victory against the Chargers. And of course, make sure and check out my show, Locked On Chargers, as well. We covered the team all year long. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
Boom. Just like that, brother.